All right, sup, fellow citizens. Welcome back to the Path of Rage, and we got a Tuesday Star Citizen episode for you. Right here in the background, you can see some gameplay of me running around the Ruin Station in Pyro. This is the latest Wave 2 4.0 EPTU patch. It's as brand new as it can get. Recording this the night before you're watching it. So I hope you enjoy that and keep an eye on it. This is me going through a contested zone. The Ghost Arena. This is a PvP outright only area. You'll see in the footage as we go through it that I don't actually shoot at the other players a lot because this is the first time I've set foot in it since, oh god, several patches ago when it was really, really buggy. You'll notice that the performance is not all that good. The 4.0 patches are improving, but they are not ready for live release yet. I know CIG is trying to get that out by the end of the year as soon as possible. They're knocking out the fixes. I don't quite think it's there yet. But we'll see, right? We still got a little bit to go before the year actually ends. Not much longer, though. So, again, keep an eye on the background video. And in the meantime, I'm going to get into both Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live for this week. Now, Inside Star Citizen, not much to say about this unless you are a music lover. The entire episode was focusing on Pedro Camacho, the music artist that's been designing and writing all of the dynamic music in the game. And one of the big things that was an update in this patch is the dynamic music. This dude's work is awesome. I love this soundtrack. Star Citizen is actually one of the very few games that I don't turn the music off in. And it's entirely because of his talented writing and musical scores that go on, and they just fit the game perfectly. There's nothing really in it, though, for me to deliver news on. So I'll leave a link in the description below. By all means, especially if you're an audiophile, go check it out. Great episode. Just not much to go into regarding what's coming new with the game. Now, Star Citizen Live, however, this was a different story. This episode was just loaded with information. Crafting, base building, raiding bases, how your bases will work. It was focusing mainly on the base building and crafting, but just absolute ton of info. How safe zones and PvP zones will work, and planetary shields. So again, as always, I will leave a link in the description below, and go ahead and by all means set an hour aside and listen to what they have to say, because there's no way I'm going to be able to cover it all in one video without just rehashing it all. What I am going to do, though, is put up some clips here of the things that really stuck out to me, and I'll give you my thoughts on those from my viewpoint of this ongoing epic project. The first really big and important thing that they got into, very first question of the episode, was how bases were going to tie into the overall economy and crafting system, and what you'll actually be able to do with them overall. So here, let's take a look at this clip.
What can player bases be used for? How will base building integrate with other gameplay features such as mining and trading?
It's very much, a base can be used for whatever you want to use it for. That will provide options for you to do all kinds of stuff with it, and there should be or is likely to be relevant links into pretty much any kind of gameplay that you can think of. So
we're talking player housing, obviously, refining bases, fabrication bases for crafting, which we'll get into more today, hunting lodges for people who want to go out and take out the fauna and stuff. Logistics, you mentioned storage stuff. It's basically, and then it goes on and on and on. It's whatever folks want to use their bases for, there will be some way, shape, or form to support that in most cases.
Yeah.
Now, overall, this sounds fantastic. The fact that bases aren't really going to be limited. You'll be able to craft your own base to your desired outcome. You'll be able to craft bases with your aura or with your friends. Just, the few friends that you happen to be gaming with instead of a giant org. You'll be able to craft that base to do exactly what you want. And the fact that they're saying it's going to tie into all of the gameplay loops, so cargo trading and probably bounty hunting, even like all of those things, that kind of tells me that they're putting a lot more thought into base building than just, hey, here you can build some buildings to make a cool looking area for you to put stuff in. Like, there's actually going to be more to it. You'll be able to put down refineries, and you'll be able to put down housing and all that kind of stuff, and everything will tie into the economy. I really, really like that. Now, a question that immediately popped into my mind that thankfully they resolved immediately afterwards in this episode was, how are the shards, the server meshing shards, going to affect how players and their bases interact with other players? Will you ever be in a position, if you're in unsecured space, say the Pyro system, and you have your own base being built or whatnot, will you ever be in a situation where other players can just annihilate your base, rob you blind while you're logged out, so that when you come back, you've lost everything with no chance of defending yourself or whatnot? How is that going to work? This is a big deal, especially because it's looking more and more unlikely that there's going to ever be a single server that all people are on, as opposed to having region locked servers like most other games. I know CIG wants to go for everybody all on one server, but I don't honestly know how they'll be able to do that, just with latency issues. If you're playing from people on North America and Asia at the same time, they're going to have drastically different latency. So that makes me wonder about that as well. But the being able to be attacked while you're AFK or not even in game, that was a big concern to me the minute I heard about base building, and they addressed it right here in this clip. Check it out.
Yep, this is a big one indeed. I think I saw this asked 20 odd times. So the plan is that every base, every plot of land, every extraction pot will be visible across all the shards within a region. And then a lot of the functionality of the base will also be available across all the shards within a region. So if I make a base and I set up a shop, people on other shards can come visit and use my shop. The exception is going to be raiding and attacking a base. This can only occur on a single shard, and which shard that is dynamic based on the rule set. The easiest rule as always is the owner online, then the raid can only occur on that owner's shard. This means that if I'm on another shard and I rock up with a gun and I shoot the base, it'll prompt me, you'll have to change shard in order to attack this base. Obviously as shards increase, we'll see this less and less, but the advantage of that is that you'll never be in this scenario where your shard, you're not able to defend your base. You'll always be able to defend your base in this scenario.
And if you're offline or there's a representation of your base in another shard, it's basically just a visual replica in those places.
Yeah, but people can also still use it, so the shops will still be functioning, that kind of thing. It's just when it comes to attacking, it all has to occur on a single shard.
Now, overall, I like this. This sounds like a pretty decent compromise. The one concern I have about it, and there's obviously a lot more development to go before we actually get this, but the one concern that I have about it right now is how it's going to look and feel when you are the attacking player and the base you're attacking can't be attacked. Like, are you just going to get a message, you can't change this, you have to switch servers, and be given the option to do so? Like, and go to or not serve as the other shards? Would we be given an option to do so, or not if the other player isn't online? Will you be shooting at a base that just doesn't take damage, even if it doesn't have a shield? That's where my concern is with this. It could be incredibly immersion breaking. There's also the aspect of, what if you are online, you're nowhere near your base, but you are online, and you're somewhere else in the verse or whatnot, you're still quite a distance of travel time away from your base. Someone switches shards and starts attacking your base, and you just simply don't have time to get back to that base. Do you lose everything at that point? A lot of questions, I think, that need to be answered as far as this goes. But again, there's a lot of time of development coming before we actually see this happen, I have to imagine. It'd be worth keeping an eye on, though. One thing they did say, though, about player-owned bases in high security areas is that they will have shields that protect them from attack, both planetary, like air shields that prevent bombardment and force a ground attack, but also that the shields will hug the buildings and the base itself. So even if you drive a tank through the shield and then you open fire on the building within the air shield, you still won't be able to do any damage. They said outright that if you are in high security space, your settlement is completely safe at that point, and it will have protection. I like this idea. No risk, no reward. Again, you're not going to be making a ton of resources and whatnot on high security areas. That's going to come from the more lawless areas, at which point you're going to have to fight in battles to get the money or the credits or whatnot to get planetary shields for your base for a week or two. Overall, this is a cool system and highlights the difference between high security and low security, and anyone who doesn't really want to worry about their base won't have to. It will be safe so long as it's in a high security area. Another thing they touched on is crafting and the crafting machines at bases, and whether or not our materials that we craft with them and the resources that we extract will be just wide open for people to tractor beam away and steal from us. And here's what they had to say.
So there's lots of different crafting machines that do their processes a little differently, but most of them will have an internal buffer that lets them hold the results of their process until you're ready to pick them up. That being said, you can also have them directly put stuff in boxes as soon as it's ready, but if you're worried about people nicking it, you don't need to be so concerned, because they'll be subject to the same sort of permissions as anything else in your base. So that's like, the mag lock that stops people stealing your chair will also stop them stealing your cargo boxes. Unless they have permission to move them, they'll be mag locked to the output grid.
And we'll get into the mag locks here in a little bit.
Yeah. There's going to be some machines that will be able to send their crafting results directly to your location storage, whether that be your hangar or a freight elevator or something. So there'll be options.
Again, this works for me. Any of the materials I go with or any of the quest objects I find, or just something I pick up and decide to decorate my base with, or I assume this would apply to ships as well, the decorations inside of them. People won't just be able to pick up stuff in their bag and walk away with. I will have to actively give them permission to even move that object before they can touch it. I like this. I think this is a perfect solution for an otherwise annoying possible problem. Another thing they mentioned that is a big topic when you think about it in the long run was the aspect of resources themselves. Never mind your bases. You're going to be able to put down refining bases on land plots that have a resource that you can mine underneath it. These will not be infinite resources. They will run out eventually. What they did say is that resources on a planet, such as minables, they will respawn. The planet will never run out of resources overall. However, What they did say is that it is highly unlikely that those resources that you put your base down on top of are going to spawn there. What they actually want you to do is eventually possibly pack up that base and move it to another spot that has more resources. Packing up these bases or breaking down the bases with the drones that build them in the first place will give you some of the resources for those buildings back, at which point you'll be able to reuse them to build another one. But that adds to the sinks for these resources, the ways that you spend them, so that you will have to spend some of those resources instead of just having infinite amount of resources at your beck and call at all times. They also wanted to encourage people to have their main base somewhere, but then also possibly build like smaller satellite bases that'll just refine a resource, for instance, or it could be a hunting lodge type thing for people who are going after the copions to harvest glands or whatever it is that they have. They want for you to actually have to think about your base, not just when you put it down, but for the maintenance of it, and eventually the possibility of having to move it to keep the entire dynamics of the surfaces of planets open and available. They also said that planets will have basically Star Citizen versions of parks, not like Central Park, but like Yellowstone Park, the nature preserves. You will not be able to build in these areas at all. Nobody will, because they will be reserved game-wise for lore reasons for actual exploration and getting out into nature and all that kind of stuff. Well, overall, I think that makes perfect sense to me. I wonder about the moving bases thing. It depends on if they make it prohibitively expensive or far too cheap. That it's a right balance that they're going to have to strike. They did talk about that. But I think that's actually a nice compromise, because otherwise you might find yourself in a situation where the amazing location that you put down a base on that has perhaps 2 or 3 minerals that you can mine won't just be constantly spawning those minerals for you forever. I like that. It means that nobody's going to be able to monopolize the best spots on the planet, because all resources will be generated by the new biomes and the new star engine. The resources will be in places that they actually make sense to be in. So if they always stayed in those spots and they never ran out, they didn't appear anywhere else, there weren't any reasons to move around, enterprising players could find the best spot for Quantanium mining, for instance, put a base down there, and then no one else gets a chance at that really good deposit. This kind of solves that. I really do dig that. Another thing they said that they're doing is that mining resources are now going to be based on the type of mining you're doing. So ship-based mining, when you're doing that, you will only be able to mine resources that require a ship when you're in a ship. If you want a ground mine, you will have to be in a ground miner, and only the ground mining minerals will be available to you. Same thing with hand mining. You will not be able to use your hand miner to mine the same things that you could with a ground or ship-based miner. It's just to separate these things out. They also said that they're going to be making resources for mining more individualistic. So instead of finding rocks that'll be 15% Quantanium, 2% titanium, 40%, or I know I'm getting off the numbers, but whatever, multiple percentages of this, that, and the other thing. Now you're actually going to be able to find resources of a quality level. So when you're looking for tungsten, for example, the rock that you're looking at, instead of displaying tungsten and copper and dolomine, it'll be just tungsten and a numbered quality. One thing they did add to this little bit of discussion at the end was some changes that are coming to ship salvaging. I find this really, really interesting. I think it's one of the last points that we're going to go over. But here, take a listen.
There's the thing that I mentioned at the beginning, that Salvage will get also a little revisit, and something that I'm really happy and excited to tell you is we will have some time to revisit it, and what we will do there is, I think, something that a lot of people already expected or for the initial release, and that is in regards to the construction material that you actually get from munching from
Structural salvage.
from structural salvage. Thank you. That is that basically the ships are made out of certain components, and once you basically gather them through that, you will have those materials, and then there will be processes to separate them, but this is something that is still being decided of what way we want to go down there.
No,
Yeah, the thing I really like about this is that it ties it into the dismantle side of crafting, that if you dismantle something, you'll get back some of what it's made of. Same thing with salvage. Your ship just kind of becomes a portable dismantling fabricator thing.
Now this is great. Absolutely love this. One of my biggest pet peeves with salvaging right now is when you're doing the hull scraping, you just get RMC back. Yeah, you can take it off and sell it and whatnot, but the gameplay loop left something to be desired, and it never made sense that when you're breaking down these ships entirely, not just the hull scraping, but the structural thing, and pulling those resources in, you still only got RMC. You didn't actually get any of the materials that all of the components of that ship would be made from. And now we will. This is a fantastic change, or not change, direction that they're going for, and I could not be happier. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on here involved more crafting as well, and specifically the use of blueprints that they talked about at CitizenCon. Whether or not you're going to be able to get blueprints back, whether or not you're going to have blueprints for ships that you bought with real money or not. This is an interesting little bit. This is going to have quite a impact on the overall crafting gameplay and overall economy, I think, of Star Citizen. And like I said, this is the last bit we're going to cover in this video, but sit back and take a listen to this, because this is a bit more important than you might at first think.
Will there be limited use blueprints?
Yes. In short, yes. We're going to be supporting both finite use blueprints, so like you get it, you can only use it n times, and then also blueprints that have a cooldown in between uses, so you can only use it, periodically. It's just to give us some extra ways to balance and limit certain things, but we're not giving any examples of that at this point.
Yeah. Can you trade blueprints?
Yes and no. So we mentioned at SitCon that the blueprints are awarded to your character, essentially, to your character's virtual blueprint library. So if you get directly credited a blueprint from a mission or a reputation reward or something, then it's bound to your character. You can't trade it. But there will be some gameplay where you find blueprints on a data pad, and that data pad can be traded before you read the data off it. Once it's been downloaded, though, it's gone. It's a one-time download, essentially. So if you've already found this blueprint and you find another blueprint of it in a loot crate somewhere, you can give it to your friend. But once they've downloaded it, the data pad is dead.
If you pledge for a ship, will you receive a blueprint to craft it?
If you buy a car from the dealer, can you make more? No, you cannot. Pledging a ship does not give you the blueprint to craft it. You got to earn that like everybody else. But it gives you the ship, and you can use the ship. Like I said at SitCon, though, once you've got a ship, however you got it, whether you pledged for it or got it in game or nicked it or something, you will be able to upgrade it. So even though you can't craft directly, make a brand new high tier ship, you can upgrade the one that you pledged for in-game materials and research and all that. But yeah, you'll be able to do that to ensure your vehicle has the best stats that you want for it.
In any case, those were the highlights of the news that came out this week. Again, 4.0 is currently in Wave 2. It should be going to Open PTU where everyone can give it a try soon enough. I don't quite think it's ready for release. CIG has a lot more work to do, but they are banging out the fixes and getting the mission system fixed, especially in Pyro, and knocking out the bugs. So I'm seeing the progress. Hopefully they don't have to delay, from the end of the year to the beginning of the next one. That would be entirely possible. Again, hopefully they don't. But I'm enjoying it so far, and I'll just keep following this process and this project as I always have, and hope at the end of it they come out with an awesome game that I am going to sink ridiculous amounts of time into. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you found I did a good job and was somewhat informative, then give me a thumbs up and smash that like button. And hit the subscribe button if you're new to help me beat the algorithm and hit 400 subscribers. Until next time, though, I've been Rage8 Games, and I'll see you in the verse. Bye-bye.